MAN-QUISITION is sponsored by the University of Portland League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is in turn sponsored by Campus Ministry. So thank you all for coming, and please enjoy the second ever MAN-QUISITIon. All rise.
Oh, hi, Ben.
Your chair, too. Thank you. Being considerate. Sit down! Believe you have an opening statement?
That we do, Your Honor. Tonight, we've got 3 cases on the docket, so hopefully this won't take too long. We, the prosecutors of the society's views of masculinity, have found 3 men right here on this beautiful bluff that do not conform to masculinity as we define it. We stand for the man, the strong, the independent, authoritative individual that places society on a pedestal for all to admire. Or society places them on a pedestal. Either way, standing pedestals are great fun. Something pedestals look at. Is this man that sheds no tears, expresses no emotion, exudes control over his domain? Is this man that wears no leash and consumes no vegetables? Man is the moneymaker, the breadwinner, the player, the fatherly figure, the lifter of heavy objects, and the opener of tightly sealed cans. And yet, these 3 individuals we prosecute today violate these standards that society has laid out for them. They must be charged with not following the image of the ideal man. No further questions or no further statements. We turn it back to you.
Bailiffs, bring forth our first dependent, or whoever's on trial today. I just woke up. In the chair. Sit down. You are being charged with impersonating a man. How do you plead?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Prosecution, you may begin.
Thank you. Now, please state your name for the record.
Father Gary Chamberlain.
Oh, hang on there. You're a father. I mean, what makes you a father? I mean, you have no kids. You have no wife. Where does your authority come from?
My father always believed his authority came from his wife.
Well then.
My authority comes from where anyone's authority comes from being a good, helpful person in the human race.
No, we can't just call Grandma. Give us some more credibility here. Who's your authority? Is it God? Is it Stacy? I mean, who are we looking for here?
Well, Stacy lets me say God. I'm a priest of the Catholic Church. My authority comes from being a Christian, being baptized, and in certain regards, I have some rank in the church that is given by the church for God.
Should ask God to come today.
We don't have to see for him.
All right, well, back to the main point. Why do you not follow the stereotypes that society has set out before you?
What stereotypes? What are the things that you're not going to talk? That was rhetorical.
I'm asking the questions here.
When I was growing up, there were many stereotypes for men. The ones that we heard of most frequently were of strong and dutiful, loving, supportive, good fathers, role models. Playa didn't really enter into it. So depends on which stereotypes you're talking about. I don't shave my back or my chest. I don't pluck my eyebrows. I don't think that there are certain ways of living that are appropriate or necessarily masculine, despite what society might say.
All right, now, I have another thing. As a priest, you commit yourself to a life of chastity, correct?
I do.
So, how can that be masculine enough? I mean, clearly you don't have sex with women. I mean, just explain that. What's the deal with that?
From what I know, most people here don't either. Christian understanding of humanity, all people are called to chastity. Chastity is simply the approach that we take when we live with other people, that it's respectful of who they are. It's about being true to our fullest nature, being authentic to who God calls us to be. So that to be chaste is simply to be faithful to what God calls us to be. And when we're in marriage, married people are chaste. They live their married commitment chastely by living out a vocation of love with one another. Those people who aren't married are all called to chastity. So that if one is being authentically Christian, an authentic Christian male would be chaste. My vocation, as I think I know it, is slightly different. It's to take a stance that says sexuality is good, it's important, it's a part of us, and we better know how to live it and live it well, but that I'm going to forego a certain aspect of it for another good, which is to promote the love of God and to serve God's people. So if one has an idea of masculinity which talks about being faithful, which talks about being dutiful to those tasks and responsibilities we think are important, and one tries to live it, and if one falls or stumbles in any way, asks forgiveness, then that's chastity, but that's masculine.
Do you have any more questions?
I was paying attention during that, so it's up to you.
Me neither. No further questions, Your Honor.
You may make a closing statement, defendant. Yes.
Okay. I think that the idea that there is a way to be masculine or a series of images that are masculine is ridiculous. That anyone who is authentically living out who they are, who recognizes that to be masculine means to be human, and to be human means that we're in constant relationship with all people, that if to be masculine doesn't take into account that there are women, and that women have ways of being and interacting and relating which help us be better, that if being masculine doesn't embrace the fullness of all of who humanity is, then it's a flawed understanding. And that in fact those stereotypes that people embrace that fall short of that are actually seriously problematic. And that that which I am maybe in the way I live it out sometimes somewhat problematic, but it's not seriously problematic.
Thank you.
I swear.
Bailiffs, please escort him.
Bailiff.
Bailiff, gotta move on.
I'm still being tracked.
Oh, okay.
And to bring forth our next defendant.
Oh, sit down.
You are charged with being whipped. How do you plead?
Not guilty.
Prosecution.
Fair enough. Please state your name for the record.
Benjamin Jeffrey Helms.
Nice, solid, masculine name there. Gotta like that.
Yep.
Again, surname Helms, part of a ship, solid, strength thing. Our third defendant might not have any use standing on that. But nonetheless, we don't see that sort of strength that we see in your name and your relationship. Now, please discuss your relationship with your master. No, hold on. Fiance, Hannah.
Hannah and I met last year, I should say. Dated for over 6 months and proposed to her 2 weeks ago, and we're getting married later this year.
Fair enough. Now, your affidavit claims that I knew I'd be a better man with her in my life. So, obviously, she's going to care for you when you're sick, cook for you, fetch you the paper when the dog's not there, give you a beer when you're watching the game alone in the man cave, won't interrupt you for food or drink, or pick up the remote when you throw when you're frustrated.
You have not met Hannah. Sorry.
Clearly, you'll be wearing the pants in that relationship, am I right?
Or the kilt.
It's game day or not. You know what? We haven't discussed who wears the pants in our relationship, in that many words at least. I would say that both of us wear the pants. And as far as that relationship being manly or me being whipped, I mean, I guess my first, like, to give you a little background on myself and my view of what a man is, I think most men's first view of what manly is from their father. Mine was. And it wasn't exactly the best picture of what a man is. My parents were divorced when I was 5. And my mother raised both me and my older brother. And my dad's been married 3 different times, divorced 3 different times. And each of those relationships ended because of his unfaithfulness. And it was pretty easy for me to see by somewhere in my teenage years probably, that if that's what a man is, I don't want anything to do with it. A lot of the choices he made directly, well, maybe indirectly actually, affected my life. And I was kicked out of high school, partly because of the ramifications looking back on it, of the choices that he made, and obviously choices I made as well. But yeah, I realized at a young age that I did want to be married. I did want a family, and that I didn't want to do it at all like my father. And yeah, so when I met Hannah, getting back to the present, like you said, I realized that I'd be a better man with her in my life. And it didn't take that long for me to realize that. A couple dates in, I was just like, I could definitely spend the rest of my life with this woman. Yeah, I guess, yeah, thanks for the small plus. Trying to be more specific, I guess. Yeah, it's not, it's something that I realized is that the paths that my dad chose in each of his relationships, each of his marriages, were the easy paths. In high school, I too wasn't the best man, best person in relationships. I was unfaithful and was a pretty shitty guy. And at the time, I was playing sports. I was even on that worship team, which in the church could be seen as manly. I was doing all these manly things, and I was dating several women at the same time. And my life was really, really bad. I was just ruining people's lives and just not really lifting anyone up. Just a really, really bad place. And it's over the years, and now I realize that I don't really know what manly is, but to be a good man, it takes work. And part of the work that I'm willing to put in over only the past 5 or 6 years, I've realized I'm willing to put in is part of a good marriage. And it was when I met Hannah that I kind of realized that I realize every day that it takes work to be in a good relationship. But banking on the fact, and I know that it's definitely worth it in the end. So,
Fair enough.
yeah.
At worst, I can at least congratulate you on your efficiency. It's a lot easier to just got one person, you don't have to worry about the 5.
Yeah,
one
no,
person,
exactly.
one
It's just easier on the schedule.
Shame is you only have one person who fetches paper when the dog's out there.
Okay, wow.
So, no further questions? Do you have anything?
You may make a closing statement.
Yeah, I feel like I've blabbed a lot already, but I guess, I mean, one thing I didn't touch on was I don't know what it is to be manly. Everyone kind of has to decide that for themselves. What is manly? But the steps I took to get to where I am now and proceed into my marriage later this year, basically I looked around for someone who I thought was manly, and to me it was a good friend of mine, Jorge Castellanos. He stayed here a few weeks ago actually. He was my youth pastor in high school, and he was to me just really, really manly guy. And it didn't mean that he didn't wear sleeves or he just hit the gym every day or played 5 sports or whatever, which obviously that's my view of manly, I guess. But he treated others with care. He loved people. People were better because they knew him. And I would just encourage you guys to, if you see someone who you admire, who you look up to, who you wish the term manly applied to, I guess, or maybe it does, to talk to them and be like, hey, how do I become manly like you are? And it sounds super cheesy, maybe don't say it like that, but talk to them. I know Josh, you came to Josh and said that, like, hey, you're a man, I admire that, how can I be more like you? He'd probably take you under his wing and talk to you about that, so that's the end of my statement, I guess.
Thank you.
There you go.
Bailiffs. Please bring forth our last defendant.
No one's gonna clap for you,
You are charged with thinking that emotion is necessary to being a man. How do you plead? Prosecution.
Got it. All right, please state your name for the record.
Name since birth, Ryan Michael Alice.
Alice. No wonder we have you up here today.
Order!
So, Mr. Alice, boxers or briefs?
Boxers.
We'll give him that much.
Briefs if I'm playing sports.
Now, Mr. Alice, you're a pretty cunning guy. Word is it that you have a full chest of hair and a fast-growing beard? Tell us, is that because of your excessive use of Old Spice?
No, it is not. I believe it is a part of my genes, part of my build-up. I'm not a scientist though, so I really don't know. But I do love Old Spice. Currently, I'm down in the Fiji. Little green label. My goodness, it's amazing. I did move past Swagger when I ran out of it, and Fiji was cheaper than Swagger. But if Swagger goes on sale, seriously, Swagger.
I'll give you points for thriftiness.
Some men are cigar connoisseurs. Apparently, Mr. Alice is a Old Spice connoisseur. Tip of the hat there.
Now, physically, you aren't, well, fit. And men are supposed to be... Men are supposed to be ripped and the envy of other men. How do you reconcile masculinity and your lack of physical attractiveness?
The prosecution will withhold insults. That's my job.
Junior prosecutor.
Can you repeat the question?
Answer the question, Alice.
You're hot.
Thank you. All right, so I believe my interpretation of the question is that men have to be chiseled, ripped, look like the hidden side of me, the underneath, the warm, furry exterior. Okay.
That
Yeah, like that. That's what's underneath this.
the gorilla or the man?
The gorilla's on the outside.
Got it.
No, I think this was actually touched on a little bit earlier in the night. You know, who says being a man means you need to walk around with no sleeves and beefy, veiny arms?
He does.
It's just cold outside.
Okay.
So I'm wearing.
You know, personally, I think there's way more to every person than what they look like. You know, I can look in this room and I can see probably 45, 50 different people. And all of you look like something, right? I can see you. And you can make judgments based on those looks, you know, and I would almost be willing to bet that every one of the judgments that you could make could be completely turned around with a conversation. You're talking with someone, or getting to know them, or asking them who they are, why they're here, why are you guys sitting here? You know, I can learn about you, about the man you are, or the woman, you ladies in the crowd, based on talking to them. And the last time I checked, talking was not a physical appearance, characteristic trait. So, part of that one, I guess.
Well, you're an education major, correct?
That is true.
So how do you reconcile being masculine and ed major. I mean, typically, I had a lot of female teachers, especially in high school and elementary school.
You're going to be a coach, right?
Maybe, maybe not. First of all, for the record, I'd like to point out three things. One, I don't eat vegetables, so that's under the manly trait. I just wanna-
Thriftiness and nothing.
Yes. Two, I did walk around lifting heavy objects growing up. That's all I did, but obviously did quit a few years ago. Three, one thing that's on your guys' list of what it means to be a man, as you said, I exclude control over his domain. Step into my classroom and you're in my domain. Okay? I set the expectations, I set the rules, you follow them. Okay? What is more manly than setting your own domain, right? That is a design space by society given to me saying, this is yours. But what's different, I think, about my domain compared to the domain that I think you guys are kind of meaning by this, right, is there's love and caring and fostering in that domain. You know, those kids come into my room every day. Most of them are miserable. It's math class. You know, and I just do my best to kind of give them a reason, right? Give them a reason to want to be there and to want to be a part of my domain. And you don't need to be dominant and you don't need to be in charge of your domain when people want to show up on your domain. You know, when people come to you and say, I want you to help me. I want you to talk to me. And that's part of what being an educator is. And I don't think there's anything more manly, I guess, than, you know, instead of me saying, come learn math, you saying, I want to learn math, Mr. Ellis. So that's part of it. That's only part of it on that one. Second of all, raise your hand if you ever had a really hot high school teacher. Yeah, the chances of me marrying that lady just increased tenfold. So, just throwing that one out there. No, but in all seriousness, it is a mainly women-dominated field. It is changing and it's shifting, and like you said, Your Honor, male teachers coach, right? They do the sports route because that is manly.
Or shop.
Or shop?
Wood shop.
Wood shop. I thought you meant to go shop. Okay. Yeah, or wood shop. But part of being a human being, to me, is furthering the education that you have, right? Male or female, to become a better person, right? You want to know more about the world. You don't want to be ignorant of what's going on out there. And that's part of what my job as an educator, right? You get to come to me and you get to say, I don't know this stuff. And you get to openly admit that to me. And I don't look at you and laugh and say, haha, you're a dummy. You know, sometimes I think it. Right? And I can look at that and I can say, you know, this person is coming to me in a vulnerable state. The classroom is a very vulnerable state. You're admitting things that you don't know how to do, that you can't do, and you get frustrated and you get upset. And I get to take that and redirect it. And I get to open up my things that I don't know, and my stuff that I don't do well. And I get to show them right back to you. I've been teaching for 8 months. Needless to say, I am not the best perfect teacher out there. You know, I'm in the classroom, and my students can relate to me 100%. Because we're both in there, and we're both struggling, and we're both working through stuff, and we just get to help each other and build each other up. And there is nothing not masculine about helping each other and building each other up.
We have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Would you like a closing statement?
Old Spice.
Bailiffs, bring all of our defendants to the front. On the grounds of impersonating a man, the court finds Father Gary Chamberlain guilty. On the grounds of being whipped, the court finds Ben Helms guilty. And on the grounds of thinking that emotion is necessary to being a man, the court finds Ryan Alice guilty. The convicted shall now be burned at the stake. But recently my bar license was revoked, so we can't do it that way. So we will burn them in effigy. Other than that, bailiff, escort them out. I think we've all learned a valuable lesson here today. When someone knows what it is, please tell me. This court is adjourned.
All right, thank you everyone for attending the second MAN-QUISITION. We've got meat cooking out here, and we're going to bring it in, so everyone please feel free to stick around, have some meat. We've got lots of root beer, and thanks again for coming. Have a good night.